the best character for each element in Arknights Endfield. Actually, that's kind of too easy. Let's do the top 2 characters for each element in Arknights Endfield. Ordered, of course. These characters will be evaluated not only based on their highest performing teams, but also just what they bring to the table in general for those teams. Let's start with Physical, the strongest character, a community favorite, one of the few male characters in the game, Pogranicznik. Every Physical character in existence currently uses Pogranicznik as their best in slot, and it's not hard to see why. What doesn't the Physical GOAT do? You want some buffs? Well, Fervent Morale and either Thermite Cutter or Never Rest provide strong buffs for the entire team. He's also currently the only character in the game who can apply the Breach debuff to enemies, increasing the physical damage they take based on the vulnerability stacks consumed. Being one of the few physical buffers we have in game currently is already good enough of a reason to run him, but that's actually not even his main selling point. With his ult, as enemies become more and more vulnerable, Pog summons more and more dudes, climaxing when all 5 of them come together on the enemy. The important part here, every time these dudes come, you get SP regeneration for the team, making him a battery for the most important resource in the game. That's why Vanguards are so broken in the current state of the game. If you don't have a Vanguard on your team, your only other source of SP regeneration comes from either dodging or doing your final strike. This is doubly true for physical teams, where their vulnerability stack application is gated mainly by SP generation. You have other sources of vulnerability such as ultimates like Li Fang or combo skills like Chen and Ember. But the more SP you have for these teams, the faster you can actually stack up vulnerability. So Pog's definitely the best physical character, but who's number 2? If we're talking pure performance, it's actually Li Fang. While Crush from either Depan or Enmin is necessary for physical teams to perform at their highest, both of these characters can actually be replaced by one or the other without a major shift in damage. On the other hand, Li Fang actually helps elevate physical teams to their best in slot rendition, that being Pog, Li Fang, either Enmin or Depan, and Chen. Though even if you're not running Sustainless, Li Fang is still the best in slot option, and that's just because how much his kit provides. He's simultaneously a damage dealer, yet he can also apply physical susceptibility via his battle skill. In real-world scenarios, you basically just use this after either crushing or breaching. Not only is he applying physical susceptibility with that skill, it's also applying vulnerability, helping with the stack generations physical teams desperately need. It also helps proc his combo skill, which applies Link. For those unaware of how Li Fang works, if you cast his ultimate when you have the Link buff on him, it has a whopping 1,400% multiplier. And it also applies 2 stacks of vulnerability, helping even more with stack generation. Li Fang's probably one of the most underrated characters currently, but because his team needs 2 6-stars, it's not hard to see why. Next up, let's do the weakest element, Electric. It should be no surprise that Antal is part of this list. As long as you're a heat or electric based unit, Antal's utility is pretty good. Susceptibility from his skill, Arts Infliction from his combo, and Amp from his ultimate. And he's doing all of that while also being a 4-star, meaning you get the access to his potentials, aka more buffing potential, for free. But wait, there's still more free-to-play friendliness to this awkward-looking lizard man. If you don't have Detonation Unit, both OBJ Arts and Stanza Memorials provide excellent team-wide buffs. Stanza is actually an insanely broken weapon for any character paired outside of their element. As a fun fact, it can actually outperform Gilberta's signature. His only real downside is that his susceptibility is single target, meaning he has to cast his battle skill to reapply it. That means if we get more AoE based content, which both Levitain and Gilberta's kit imply that we will, he's gonna start to fall off. He also happens to be fighting against the spot that Vanguards normally occupy in all of his teams. In Electric, for example, you can run Perlica, Aviwena, Antal, Gilberta. But in that comp, he's fighting against both Arclight and Akakuri for his spot. That's the same exact situation as with Levitain, where he's fighting for Akakuri's spot there as well. If we start needing more and more SP for team comps to function in the future, I have no doubt Antal is going to fall off a cliff. Hey, did you send the 30k? Alright, well in second place is Perlica. Much like Antal, a ton of Perlica's strength comes from her ability to pair outside of electric-based teams. That's because electrification acts as a universal damage buff, meaning if she wants to provide utility to other teams, all she needs to do is activate her universal combo skill. Last Right teams actually end up using Perlica as their best in slot option to one-shot bosses, and Yvonne teams can do the exact same thing. All you need to do is make sure you're stacking Arts Intensity on her gear. That way, you're increasing the value of the electrification that she provides. Oh, and her P4 is actually misworded. it actually increases the electrification level of her combo skill by a single level. Meaning if it starts at a base of 1, it'll become a level 2 electrification. While her best teams are outside of electric, for clarity's sake, she's also best in slot with Aviwena as well. The problem there is just that Aviwena as a 5-star isn't keeping up with limited characters like Levitain. It's actually pretty arguable she's above even on tall. In fact, PayPal me another 30k and I'll do just that. Next up, let's talk about Heats. The number 1 Heats-based character in Arknights Endfield. The Queen of Flames, Miss Memory Loss herself. The strongest DPS in the game currently, Levitain. I mean, I kind of just spoiled why there, but we all already know why. Not only is she stupidly strong in single target content, unlike Lacerite and Yvonne, she even scales multiplicatively with AoE based content. That means if AoE based game modes exist in the future, she's gonna get even more stonks. Keep in mind her team options are super cheap as well. She runs literally 3 characters you get for free. Depending on which one you run, both Untal and Akakuri are only 4-star units, meaning you're guaranteed to have them if you've ever pulled on a banner. And Ardelia, while being a 6-star unit, is given to you literally for free for just logging into the game. And of course, you also get her signature. To couple with that value, the Origiometry Battle Pass, aka the free version, also gives you access to Umbral Torch, a 6-star weapon which is only about 13% worse than her own signature. Other characters like Lacerite have a much bigger discrepancy between their free-to-play options and their signature. The point I'm getting at is that as a limited character, not only is she strong, she's also weirdly budget-friendly too. As for the second strongest Heats character, we all just know it's Akakuri. Obviously, she's been nerfed since beta, but she still fills in a ton of roles that we're just lacking with our current cast. If you remember what I said about Pog earlier, you can think of Akakuri as just Pog at home, except more universal. Her SP generation is tied to her ultimate and combo skill, and both of the proc conditions are universal. For her ultimate, you just acquire energy and you get to cast it whenever you want, and her combo skill just requires the enemy to be staggered, which you plan on building anyway because you do bonus damage during that window. She also has decent universal buffs in her kit as well. Her ultimate applies Link to allies, which increases the damage of the next either battle skill or ultimate cast by one of your allies. As an SP battery, she also has the option of running Thermite Cutter, one of the strongest weapons in the game. It's one of the strongest because it applies attack buffs, which are much stronger than damage percent buffs. This is both because the oversaturation of damage percent buffs, but also the multiplicative nature of the attack formula. Did I mention she also goes everywhere? In fact, here's a list of every single character she pairs with. Wait, that's literally everyone. Honestly, I expect her to fall off pretty hard as we get more Vanguard units in the future. But for now, she's very strong. Nature is the home of both of our 6-star supports. It's only natural that both of them go against each other in a head-to-head. If you want a deep dive into which is better and why, including if you should pull for Gilberta, you can check out my Ardelia versus Gilberta video. Spoilers, the Sheep Girl won. Ardelia is simply the strongest general support we have currently. A trend you'll notice in Enfield when I talk about generalists is that I often mention just how easy it is to proc their combo skill. Luckily for Ardelia, she can do just that. As long as the enemy doesn't have vulnerability or arts infliction on them, you can proc Ardelia's combo skill with a simple final strike. From there, just use your battle skill and you apply 20% susceptibility on the enemy, and it lasts for 30 seconds. The cherry on top, it works for both physical and arts-based teams, making her universal for both types of comps. If you're using a sustain unit, Ardelia is almost always the best in slot option. Pog, Physical, Levitain, Lacerite, all of these characters end up using Ardelia. They all want the permanent susceptibility she offers. Her signature being free and giving everybody bonus damage is a nice plus too. On the other hand, Gilberta has major trade-offs compared to Ardelia. Her susceptibility is only applied when her ultimate is on the field, and that field itself only lasts for 5 seconds. Though there are 2 benefits here. Not only is susceptibility much higher than Ardelia's, it's also much easier to apply it against multiple enemies. The susceptibility starts at 30 base, so that's already 10% higher than Ardelia's. On top of that, for every vulnerable stack on the enemy, she gains an additional 3%. That gives you up to 42% susceptibility total, which she can proc on her own via her combo skill. I do think this fact is often overlooked by the community. Most team comps in the game are doing the majority of their damage during these stagger windows. In fact, every single optimal rotation tries to optimize having every single buff possible for that window. The rest of your gameplay is spent building up to that moment. If you don't use her ultimate randomly during a fight, she will always have access to her ultimate during a stagger window, meaning you have the susceptibility up when it actually matters. That said, she's not really currently run because she's just simply not as universal as Ardelia. Both their ultimate and battle skill apply Nature Infliction, and for the best teams in the game currently, that ends up actually bricking their rotations. In Levitane's case, you can easily brick your rotations with the Nature Infliction, and the best way to actually play Gilberta in those comps is to basically never use your battle skill. With Last Rite specifically, you actually completely brick the rotation if you run Gilberta with her. That's because Last Rite specifically needs to be the one consuming the Cryo Infliction on the enemy. That means anytime you apply Nature Infliction, you need to apply an extra Cryo Infliction, causing you to spend already more SP. And that's when you're not even running a Vanguard in the comp in the first place. Also, for some reason they gave Gilberta vulnerability, then decided her ultimate only applies art susceptibility? That makes her synergy in physical-based teams fall off a cliff. For the sake of saying I was right in the future, I fully expect Gilberta to be much stronger than Ardelia in the near future. If she ends up T5 and you clip this, I will ban you. The last element on our list, Cryo, and it's only fitting we're starting with Last Rite. You heard that correct. Not only is it kinda difficult to speak about Yvonne just because no one really owns her currently, we also don't have access to her signature weapon. That said, in the current state of the game, Last Rite is actually getting trim medals much easier than Yvonne is. Whether that's because people don't have her signature weapon, people are just god-awful at her, or she needs future supports, who's to say? Last Rite, however, is literally one-shotting bosses. Now granted, that's with the potentials and whatnot, so it's not exactly realistic, but her damage capabilities are kind of wild. While Last Rite's damage and looks are her upsides, her downsides are basically everything else. Her stupid long auto attack chain is super easy to interrupt, and it causes you to get stalled often against fights with multiple enemies or in boss fights. Speaking of multiple mobs, her AoE is god-awful. Doing open world content with her is basically torture. You single target down every mob on the map. If she's against mobile bosses or monsters, she can have a hard time connecting her final strike. If you find yourself in a scenario like that, it's generally better to just switch to a ranged character and auto attack with them. Don't get it twisted though, she's not a bad character by any means. She just has real trade-offs to playing her, unlike characters like Levitane. Last Rite is still currently number 1 on the Cryo list for a reason. The final character on the list, the second strongest Cryo unit, Shaihi. Look, I know you all expected me to say Yvonne. I know it's the easy cop-out answer, but realistically, Shaihi can go in both of these teams. She's best in slot in both of these teams, and Last Rite is currently outperforming Yvonne. That said, as people figure out more about Yvonne, maybe that'll change, but I think there's a legitimately good case for Shaihi here. She's both a solid Cryo Inflictor with her combo, and a disgusting buffer with both her skill and ultimate. Her skill provides 15% arts amp if you're at full HP. Keep in mind that Untal's ultimate only provides 20%, and that's not even her big buff. Her ultimate gives a whopping 36% amp for 12 seconds, assuming that you reach the intellect cap. That means her buffing capabilities come out to a total 51% amp. Oh, did I mention that it applies for both Cryo and Nature as well? Granted, we don't currently have a Nature character to make use of this, but that speaks to her future value. And for those who actually play Shaihi, you know that her potentials increase her buffing capabilities even more. The only reason I'm not including them is that I still don't personally own them. Welcome to Gacha RNG Hell. Check out my 100-hour journey in Enfield right here, or my experience playing Last Rite right here. And of course, subscribe.